So we finally have chapter 5 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex in full, and let's just say it calls everything we thought we knew into question. So we have Boruto finally returning to the village, we have Sasuke versus Unlimited Code, and we also found out what the intentions of the new Shinju beings are, which I found very interesting. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the cover page of this chapter features Sasuke Uchiha, and for good reason. He's actually important to the overall theme of the chapter itself. So it says here that even doubting himself what he believes is. Then it says after the big change, what happened between Boruto and Sasuke. It then switches to Boruto training with Sasuke himself, and it seems like it has been a while since they left the village, since Boruto seems a lot taller than he was before, and his hair has also grown out quite a bit. So it looks a lot like Sasuke, pretty much. It then switches to a scene of them sitting around the campfire where Boruto seems to be joking with Sasuke. So he says, Sasuke, nah, I mean master, how is my Uchiha style? Don't you think I'm already mastering it? Sasuke then takes this seriously and replied saying, yeah, in this year, I think I was able to teach you most of my techniques and style. Boruto then says, hold on master, you have to be joking, I was just being a little cocky. Train me more from now on too. Sasuke then replied saying, do you think the look on this face is joking? You have everything in your mind, right? So I got nothing else to teach you. But don't misunderstand, it doesn't mean your training is over. You still have to keep going. Strengthen your mind and techniques. It all depends on you how much you can master what I taught you. He then tells Boruto that he's just like Naruto, the guy who corrected him when he stepped on the wrong path. You have the same eyes as him. Who you are doesn't really matter right now. I think I get why Sarada told me to save you. Something is happening. Something that can only be solved by you and Sarada. That's what my feelings are telling me. That's why I trained you. So basically what this entire conversation seems to be implying is that Sasuke really relayed everything he knows to Boruto. So I guess you could assume that Boruto now knows every single technique Sasuke has ever used, aside from the Sharingan based techniques like Amaterasu of course. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those techniques are, because I don't think he's referring to Flying Raijin. I think that was done by Kashin Koji. But Boruto did use Chidori's stream against the Ten Tails clone, so I think that's what he's referring to, but I guess we'll see. Now he also mentioned that Naruto kept him on the right path, so I think Boruto now knows that Sasuke was a rogue ninja, because he didn't know that before. Or maybe he didn't know the full extent of what Sasuke did, but it seems like he's fully aware of what happened right now. And it also seems to be the case with Sarada as well, based on the conversation she had with Shikamaru in chapter 1. So I guess it would have been really cool to see their initial reactions to this information, but that could also happen in future chapters during flashbacks, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now one other thing we didn't get to see in full is the battle between Sasuke and Code, because the panel then switched to what seems to be the end portion of the fight between Sasuke, Code, and Boruto. And one thing we need to take into consideration is that Code said in chapter 2 that Boruto ran away from the fight without doing anything, so we can assume that Boruto never even fought Code. So based on Code being damaged here, it seems like Sasuke, who lost his Renegon, did most of the work against Unlimited Code. And Code even says it here, says, damn Uchiha, how dare you take my eye? And then Sasuke then told Boruto, what are you doing? Hurry up and run. Boruto of course is not going to do that. Initially he says, what are you saying? I can't leave my master behind. Sasuke then replied saying, there's no way we can beat this guy, at least for now. So run. Whatever you do, you need to survive. Master every aspect I taught you. If so, there should be no one that can stand against you. And that's when you see Sasuke cloak his sword in Chidori and ran towards Code, with Code leading the charge with his Ten Tails army behind him. Now this part is very important, because what we saw next is Boruto returning to the scene with Sasuke now being a tree and multiple dead claw grimes surrounding him. So what this means is that Boruto did indeed leave and came back to the scene afterwards. So Sasuke by himself took on Code and his Ten Tails army. Now the reason why this part is very important is because based on what was told to us, Code is one of the cyborgs that greatly surpassed Jigen in combat power. Now there are multiple statements, and I saw some people making some comments in the spoiler video saying that Code wasn't stated to be greatly above Jigen. But if you actually read the conversation, he did mention that Code surpassed his combat ability. And then he went on to say that there are other cyborgs that greatly surpass Jigen in combat power. And this is then followed by him stating that they were ordered to be destroyed because of this reason, but Code avoided that by pledging allegiance to Jigen and getting a limiter implanted into his body. So this means that Code is one of the cyborgs that greatly surpassed Jigen in power, and Jigen ordered him to be scrapped just like everyone else. So Code, without his limiters, at least in his karma stage, should be greatly above Jigen. Now the argument people use is that in this picture that we see here, Code doesn't have his karma seal active. So Sasuke slashing him does make sense because he slashed a base Code, not a Code who had his karma seal active. Now the issue with this is that we don't know for sure, because we saw in chapter 2 or chapter 3 that Code got knocked out of his karma seal by taking damage from the Rasengan. So we could assume that Sasuke slashing him on his left eye where the karma seal is supposed to be knocked him out of the karma state itself. So we don't know for sure. It could have been base Code, but we don't know. What we do know is that Code in character does always use his karma seal in battle. Now that doesn't mean that he always enters the battle with his karma seal active, because you've seen multiple times where he starts the battle in base and then enters the karma seal afterwards. But based on what we see here, Sasuke is badly damaged, Boruto seems to be a little bit tired, and Code also has a few scratches, so it seems that the battle was going on for quite a bit. And for a character who's supposedly above Jigen, greatly above Jigen, versus a Sasuke who lost his Renegon, which means that the Sasuke who fought Jigen is way stronger than this version of Sasuke, or he should be, it is kinda weird that Code is having this much trouble, especially since he himself stated that Boruto didn't do anything in this fight. So the main opponent in this battle is actually Sasuke. Now just to clarify, I'm not saying that this is somehow a plot hole or anything. There are multiple ways this could end up being the case, right? It could be that one, Code isn't as strong as we thought he was, but that wouldn't make sense since Damon himself stated that Code is indeed stronger than Jigen. So I think we can assume that Code is stronger than Jigen. Now the next reason I have, which I think is the most logical choice, is that we overestimated Jigen's true power. We have to remember that before Jigen went to fight Naruto, and this is for him to fight Naruto, he didn't know that Sasuke was gonna be there, he went to gather energy from the Ten Tails enemy. And this is the same Ten Tails that is now creating beings that are able to contend with this Boruto and Code. So this Ten Tails is actually really powerful. We don't know why he's that strong, but the Ten Tails that Jigen was taking chakra from moments before fighting Naruto is immensely powerful. Now the Clawgrams are infused with the power of Code as well, because he did also include his chakra, but that chakra was separated amongst like over 1,000 beings. So that tiny portion of his chakra can't be what makes them so strong. Like something else is happening here, but we're gonna save that for another video where I can go in depth on it. But what I'm saying here is that the Ten Tails Jigen absorb power from seems to be very powerful, and that could explain why Jigen himself was so strong and could take on Naruto and Sasuke the way that he did. Now of course we'll have some people who say, yo, we can't quantify how much power it added to Jigen or whatever, but what we know is that it did increase his power, because as confirmed in Naruto back in Shippuden, the Nine Tails chakra is potent and it's like calories. It made Choji get stronger, and everyone who got the chakra gained immense power. And now we're talking about a Ten Tails. So just imagine how much power it added to Jigen's body that he wouldn't have had absent of that chakra. So I think that might be what happened with Jigen, and Code isn't as strong as we thought he was because Jigen himself wasn't as strong as we thought he was. And it also explains why Boruto, who supposedly using a weak Otsutsuki in Momoshiki, was always relative to Kawaki, who had Shiki's karma seal, right? It doesn't seem like the karma is able to extract the full power of the Otsutsuki, and that somewhat explains Boruto's relativity, along with Boruto having this innate power from the Otsutsuki. But yeah, what I'm gonna do is just put that in a video where I explain it in depth, because I don't want to like waste the chapter review itself on this one point. But yeah, we're gonna move on. So yeah, just look out for that video on that specific topic. So as you see in the next panel, Boruto takes Sasuke's sword. So the clothing that Boruto is wearing is his clothing, but the sword is Sasuke's. And he then tells Sasuke to leave it to him, which is when we switch back to present day with Boruto finally getting a haircut. Now this is where we move into the Ten Tails section of the chapter. So we see that Konohamaru is rushing up to this new tree that's in the middle of the village, and it seems like, as I predicted, that Moegi was turned into a tree off screen. Now of course Team 10 is a little bit distraught because this is their master, of course, and we have Chocho saying that she won't forgive them, Code and the Jubi. We have Inojin saying that it's obvious that he won't forgive them either, and then Konohamaru chimed in saying it doesn't mean Moegi died, we're going to find a way to save her. And that's when we switch to this page that basically confirms that the female Shinju is actually Moegi, and she she says here that the kids of Ina Shikacho and Sarutobi Konohamaru, their deep despair and anger is what I feel. So yeah, this confirms that she is indeed Moegi being transformed. She isn't Delta, she isn't Ada, she is Moegi, you know? And that made sense, you know, based on her using Moegi's Earth style ability, which confirms something I theorized in my video about the fake Renegons, which is that these beings are all connected. They're one biological entity, but we're gonna get to that point in this chapter. Now after she said the stuff about feeling the energy or the anger and despair of Konohamaru and the other members of Team 10, the male Shinju, which is the Jigen looking Shinju, then confirms that that's the proof of your sensitivity growing. We are indeed biologically one. But Matsuri, the feeling you felt seems to be only inside you. We are a single existence as the Shinju, but also a unique state having our own consciousness. So as I mentioned before, these Ten-Tails entities have Renegons in all of their bodies, but we know that the Ten-Tails itself only had one Renegon. So I made this video explaining that they have fake Renegons, which you guys can go check out after this one. And just to clarify, when I say that they have fake Renegons, I'm referring to something similar to the Outer Path ability of Nagato's Renegon, which allowed him to create the 6 paths of pain. So these guys were just regular humans, random beings that died, and he then used their corpses using the Outer Path ability of the Renegon to basically control their bodies, and also gave them fake Renegons. Now you couldn't just take these eyes from these corpses and then have a Renegon, because these Renegons weren't real. But by reflecting and controlling them using the Outer Path ability, the Renegon of Nagato was reflected in their eyes as well, and that gave them the ability to use a single ability of the Renegon, and also enhance their physical prowess. And Obito did the same thing to the Jinchurikis as well. When he used the Outer Path ability on them, they reflected his Sharingan and his Renegon in their eyes. But that doesn't mean that they themselves had these eyes for themselves that you could take and then use the abilities. So that's what I mean by these Ten-Tails enemies having fake Renegons. It could be that the Ten-Tails has the Outer Path ability and it's just reflecting its Renegon in their eyes. And it's like a shared vision and a permanent linked state. So that's why it says here that they're one entity, one biological being, but still possess a separate consciousness. But I could be wrong. It could be that the Ten-Tails just cloned its Renegon and gave it to them individually, and that could also be the case, and I have no problem with it. It's just a theory. But yeah, so this guy here, who seems to be the smartest one of all of them, he seems to be the most powerful as well. So it says here that Boruto and Kawaki, the purpose of eating them as Otsutsuki and evolving doesn't change. He then went on to say that I don't know why I feel like this, it's probably a desire from instinct, so that's why I think it's important. Uzumaki Naruto, I'm thinking of eating him. And then we see that Ada is watching them using her Senringan and she's reacting to the information. She's saying, what? These guys? And then it seems that the other Shinju members seem to be a little bit confused about this. So the bug Shinju is asking him why he's not an Otsutsuki. Then the Jigen looking one replied saying, that's right, but we are already a Shinju and is evolving in different ways. It seems that the instinct moving us is changing as well. He then tells them to follow their instinct, listen to the voice inside you. Then you should be able to see the target each of you got. The female Shinju then chimed in saying the one she imagined was him, Sarutobi Konohamaru. Maybe I want to eat him. The Jigen Shinju then replied saying, that's a good choice, Matsuri. I feel your identity. And that's when the Sasuke looking Shinju chimed in saying Jura. So it seems that the name of the Jigen looking fellow is actually Jura, so we're gonna call him Jura going forward. So the Sasuke Shinju then says, I only have one question in mind about us. Who are we? Jura then replied saying, it's reasonable, but it's also something we don't need to care about. It's like the pain when you grow. It's something that occurs when your personality grows as well. It's a waste of time to think about it. What you need to do is important. The instinct will tell you who your target is. Hidari, that's your identity. And it then seems that the Sasuke Shinju is kinda still confused about it. So I don't know how this looks, and I might be off base with this, but I think this guy, the Sasuke Shinju, might end up betraying this Jigen looking Shinju. I think they're kinda leaning into that a bit by having Jura looking at him like this and the Sasuke Shinju like questioning their existence and all that stuff. So it might play out in that way, maybe not. I guess we'll see. Now something very interesting happened next. So as I said, Ada is there and she's watching them. And as you know about Ada's ability, when she uses the Senringan, she doesn't just see things, she projects her consciousness to that specific point in time. So right now she is in the room, her consciousness is in the room watching them. She then says the people that turned into a tree being eaten by a claw grime, their chakra gave birth to these guys. And that's when it seems like the bug Shinju noticed Ada's presence in the room, and he then walked over to Ada and looked directly in her face. He then says, "I'm watching, Ada. I got it. My target is you." And that's when Ada was startled and she dropped her drink because she's surprised that someone was able to pick up on her consciousness in the room. And that's when Jura said, "I see the Senringan." Now this part is very important because it might be misconstrued that all of them could see Ada, but I think that based on what happened, it seems like only the bug Shinju could sense Ada's presence and maybe even see her. It doesn't seem like the other Shinjus noticed her presence based on the Jigen Shinju's reaction to Bug doing what he did. So I don't know, it could be that Bug has this deep connection because she is his target and that's why he could sense her presence. But it could be that all of them could see her based on the Renegon that they have. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the Sasuke Shinju then confirmed that his target is Sarada Uchiha. So this basically confirms that all of them have memories of the people they know and love, and it also could be that they have all the memories of the person they cloned, which explains why they have the abilities and all that jazz. So what this means is that it seems like these Shinjus, their targets are someone that was close to the person they cloned. So for the Shinju that cloned Moegi, her target is Sarutobi Konohamaru because Konohamaru is the best friend of Moegi, a childhood best friend, right? And then we have the Sasuke Shinju, and his target is Sarada Uchiha. It's his daughter, the person he loves the most in the world. And then we have the Bug Shinju, which is a little bit more straightforward because we know that Bug was in love with Ada due to Ada's charm ability. So all of everyone in the world, Bug definitely loved Ada, so that made sense. But then we have the Jigen looking Shinju, which is where it gets a little bit weird because did Jigen love Naruto? Why is he obsessed with Naruto, you know? But if we assume that it is indeed Jigen because he looks like Jigen, and he could have gotten Jigen's chakra or data from Code's Karma Seal, right? So it is possible. So if we assume that is the case, I guess you could say that it's not about who you love only, it could also be who you hate the most. So in this case, it could be that Jigen hated Naruto because Naruto took his son. That person of course being Kawaki. But then you have the possibility of it being Gaara, who is Naruto's childhood friend, and you could assume that Naruto is the closest person to Gaara aside from his own sister, you know, his brother, his own adopted son, I guess. I guess you could say that. But there's also the possibility that it's actually Kawaki, which I find very interesting. I'm gonna save that theory for a video that I'm gonna put out later this week. So if you guys want to find out more, ensure that you're there for that one. Now then we switch over to Amado having a conversation with Sumire, and it seems like he doesn't really care that Boruto came back to the village. He's like, yeah, you know, whatever, yeah, it's fine. And this of course has Sumire confused because she's like, wait, hold on. Doesn't Boruto have the Karma Seal that has your daughter's data that you need to resurrect your daughter? Or don't you believe that to be the case due to omnipotence? Like she's saying that to herself. And Amado is like, yeah, you know, I let him escape, you know, I teamed up with Kashin Koji to defeat Ishiki. But he then went on to say that speaking about Kawaki-kun, who has a karma, his body is also a scientific ninja tool. But when and who modified his body like that, the point is that nobody knows about it. But the fact is that the body was in fact modified by my hands. He then says that it can only be done by me. There are signs that I can see that is done from me in many places. It's my instinct as a scientist, similar to how artists leave proofs that the job was done by them. The same could be said for the karma. I can distinguish it with a look if it was done by me. Somehow Kawaki has it in his hand, the special karma seal that I put my daughter in. These are controversies in my memory, but with the proof we have in front of us, the answer is obvious. Probably part of my memory has been overwritten. That's the only conclusion I can come up with. First of all, memories are just vague phantoms. Me as a scientist, there's nothing that beats actual proof. He then says that I don't know who did it, but I can clearly say this. What matters to me is the karma for my daughter, and the one who has it is not Boruto, but Kawaki. And that's when you see that Sai is watching Konohamaru, maybe using a hidden camera, and he then relays it to Shikamaru and asks him how does he take the conversation. So what it simply means is that Amado is able to see through the contradictions of omnipotence by simply viewing the evidence. Now this is contradictory to what Sarada said before, which is that even when presented with actual evidence, the people still discard it and still go along with omnipotence said. So it's kind of fishy that Amado is able to do this because Sarada even mentions it later on when Sumire relayed that to her. So she's a little bit confused, saying that though he's affected by omnipotence, he recognizes that the memory is overwritten by actually having proof. But that's impossible. Even if someone sees a family photo with Boruto on it, people say Kawaki is still the seventh son, and no one doubts it. Sumire then chimed in saying, if you have a crisp memory, no one will usually doubt it. Everyone believes in their own memory, no matter how much proof we have. Sarada then says, but Papa did, which is referring to Sasuke, because he was able to ignore omnipotence and still side with Boruto. And that's when Boruto just popped up from nowhere saying, nah, Sasuke trusted me. Doubting his own memories, he used his life to save me, and also for you, Sarada. So this part is very important, and I think a lot of people miss this, but what Boruto is saying here is that Sasuke's situation is different from Amado's. Sasuke didn't just see contradictions, physical contradictions, and then was like, oh okay, this doesn't make sense, and now I'm just gonna ignore omnipotence. No, he changed his mind based on his feelings for Sarada and Boruto. That's what happened. So something doesn't make sense about omnipotence not overwriting Amado's doubts. That should happen unless he has some emotional connection. Though it could be that his emotional connection that drives him forth is his connection to his daughter Akabe and wanting to resurrect her using the Karma Seal. So him seeing that Karma Seal on Kawaki, the Kawaki is pretending to be Boruto, makes him doubt omnipotence to such a degree that it does overwrite the power of omnipotence itself. So I guess you could go that route. You know, maybe Amado is indeed a gentleman, and we just have to wait and see. But what's also interesting here is that Shikamaru seems to be doubting what's going on as well, based on mounting evidence from what Sarada is saying, and also from what Amado said in that video capture. So I guess we might see Shikamaru switch allegiance to Boruto based on Boruto actually coming back to the village, and it seems like he's here to stay. But yeah, Sarada ran into Boruto's arms saying, stupid Boruto, you're late. Then Boruto hugged her back again saying, I'm sorry, I'm now whole. So yeah, Boruto is here to stay, but Kawaki wants him dead, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. Boruto is still enemy number one. Everyone in the village hates him, so I don't think he's gonna walk around in the village anytime soon. But they could still work with Boruto, you know, behind the scenes and whatever, and get information that they need. So all is not lost. I think we're gonna get a temporary team up like how Sasuke teamed up with Naruto in the war just to try to kill him after the war was over. So I think that might happen here as well. But yeah, the chapter itself was really good. We got some new information. I have some videos coming out on what happened in this specific chapter, which I mentioned before, so look out for those videos. Let me know your thoughts on the chapter itself. Do you think it's a 9 out of 10, a 8 out of 10, or a 7? I don't think you can honestly go lower than a 7, okay? But if you want to, it's your prerogative, you know. I don't think it's honest, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the power scaling and this new 10 Tails enemy. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.